humans are so adaptable and we're so creative that once, we are given these restrictions, it takes a week or two, maybe 3, and then we start finding new ways of doing things, and we can continue and carry on working in a safe manner.
Hi, I'm Andre Chandra, founder and CEO of Propelo Media. Leaders rise up in challenging times. In today's Ask an Expert series, we're going to be talking to Heather James, owner of Active Safety Management, a company that provides safety staffing and consulting to the construction and industrial businesses in British Columbia, Canada. We're going to be talking about how COVID and social distancing can affect how you operate your work environment from a safety standpoint. Let's hear it from her. Well, Heather James, thank you for joining us here. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself and your company there?
So my company is Active Safety Management. Started it over 10 years ago now. When I originally started it, it was called Active First Aid, and we recently changed the name just to give a better idea of what it is that we provide. We do first aid and safety staffing on construction sites. So we send first aid attendants and safety officers onto construction sites to monitor for safety and then take care of first aid incidents, and more recently doing social distance monitoring with the new pandemic issues hitting our construction sites. We're deemed an essential service, obviously construction, and in order to proceed with building, obviously it's not business as usual. We have to maintain 6 feet apart wherever possible. A lot of the projects that are outside, obviously, are a lot easier to proceed with because we can maintain those distancing. It's been very important as well to protect the first aid attendants from even the suspicion of being in contact with somebody who has had a sniffle, right? So things have changed. People can't just go marching into the first aid room and grabbing Band-Aids. There's protocols around, knocking first. Obviously, if it's an urgent first aid call, we're still going to respond, put on proper PPE. We can wear masks, gloves, and glasses. But when it comes to, just minor injuries, we make sure that everybody's within, that has to come within 6 feet of each other, obviously, to treat an injury, is masked up, wearing gloves, glasses, that whole.
Okay. Has it been an easy transition for you and your company with these new rules? I imagine you had to go some under, some training, or you're given some guidelines that the government's office probably just put together very quickly as well. So was there a mad scramble kind of putting all of this together and getting your team prepared for it?
So there's a couple weeks, 2 or 3 weeks of, yes, the adjustment and the scrambling. Is construction even going to be allowed to continue? There was reports of one very large construction site shutting down because somebody, wasn't feeling well and had the flu. So hundreds of workers shut down for, 2 or 3 days until they can confirm that it wasn't a case. And that was really early on. And so now a lot of the protocols have come into place. So for example, when you come onto the job site, before you even pass the gates, you need to fill out a survey that says, this is my name. I have not experienced any of these symptoms, because we were having workers coming to work in order to prove that they were well, so that was defeating the purpose. So just reinforcing that, listen, things are different right now. If you have the sniffles, don't come to work. We are used to working through colds and coming to work even though we're not feeling the greatest. Now we're asking everybody that sneezes to just stay at home. So there are questionnaires that need to be filled out before even entering on sites. A lot of people have digitalized this so that there's a QR code that they can scan. They fill out their name, etc., and then they're cleared to come on site. Orientations that are being conducted need to be conducted outside of a site trailer with everybody standing 6 feet apart. So yes, there was a lot of scrambling, and what really helped, I think, was we put out a couple of mass emails and newsletters about our practical applications for the guidelines that the government had given us. So, for example, yes, it says stay 6 feet apart, but where are we coming in close contact on the job sites? And what can we do to separate that? So giving real practical examples. Our Provincial Construction Association as well provided a lot of very practical working examples on how to implement these regulations on site. Having a social distance monitor was a huge thing. It was actually a client requested one of our staff do it, so we adapted that, provided them with what they wanted, and then told as many people as we could, hey, get a social distance monitor for your site. And this wasn't just about trying to create work for us, because it hasn't changed much in that way in terms of revenue ups and downs. But what I wanted to do was to get these regulations implemented at as many construction sites in our province as possible so that we limit the chances of an outbreak. I wanted to get the social distance monitor concept out into the industry and applied at as many construction sites as possible so that the industry as a whole could continue. Because the second we start seeing clusters or outbreaks on construction sites, we risk getting shut down. And I was very fortunate with being in one of the industries that is allowed to continue during the pandemic. And I wanted to make sure that the guidelines that the government had given us were interpreted, translated, and implemented at as many construction sites as possible so that we could all work safely and therefore continue to work.
Got it. All right. Now, if you can project forward, do you foresee these types of monitoring having an extra person on site? Do you think this will translate to other industries as well? At least, here in California, when we go to supermarkets, there's already, someone actually handing you sanitized baskets or shopping carts. So, but if I can just ask for your opinion, do you see this going to other industries as well?
Yes, I would like to see it. I know we've had some clusters at food processing or meat processing plants up here, which is very discouraging because they are still an industrial business, and it's scary because that's where we get our food from. So if entire plants are shut down because of the spread of this disease, how are we going to work? Or how are we going to eat? They need to take these regulations seriously, and I don't know all the backgrounds and ins and outs of the food processing industry, but I understand people were within 6 feet of each other, really closely packed. Right. We need to get creative. Things are going to be done more slowly, but humans are so adaptable and we're so creative that once, we are given these restrictions, it takes a week or two, maybe 3, and then we start finding new ways of doing things, and we can continue and carry on working in a safe manner. But it's the businesses or industries that don't want to acknowledge or can't spare the time or won't spare the time to brainstorm new ways of doing things that now we're seeing breakouts and clusters appearing in food processing plants. Sure. And so was there social distancing monitoring put in place? Are things getting sanitized regularly? I don't know. Okay. No. I do see security guards at grocery stores doing the social distance monitoring. So there may be a place for a specially trained social distance monitor who is not only aware of the regulations and preventative measures for this disease, but is very well trained in sensitivity around, people are coming into grocery stores and it's not business as usual. It's, oh my God, I can't use my reusable shopping bags. Or, little stressors that aren't a big deal all of a sudden I'm feeling this as well. I feel fine, I feel normal, and then I go to the grocery store and the rules have changed. All of a sudden it's a one-way walking aisle. And I've gone the wrong direction down a one-way aisle, and the social distance monitor corrects me. Oops, sorry, you're going the wrong way. You need to go the other way.
Right.
And I feel, oh my gosh, I've done something wrong. And it's a very quick trigger to emotions and sensitivity because things are upside down. So I think there's a space for these people to not only educate on how to maintain a safe distance and how to shop safely, but it's also sensitive to the fact that everybody's emotions are heightened right now, and take that into consideration.
Yeah. So I totally agree with you. So there's the skill, being able to understand and follow the guidelines, but I think that the core personality of that person is just as important because everybody's on edge right now.
Yeah, and they're gonna, nobody likes being told what to do. So when this person came up and pointed out, so it's 2 times, I also had my reusable grocery bags, and they're like, oh, you can't bring that in here. And, them's fighting words, don't tell me what I can or cannot do. I can do so little right now that my reusable shopping bags was all I had, and I just was so upset about having to use plastic. And that I've done something wrong, that I'm this dirty person that has brought in their reusable bags. It was upsetting, and normally I'm a pretty rational person, and this shopping bag issue, I was upset about it. So if this person is like, hey, I love to see that you want to save the environment, but right now it's a risk, and just being extra sensitive instead of being a COVID cop, call it that.
Right. Got it. Now, for those of us who are outside of Canada, maybe in the US and other countries, do you also observe the social distance monitoring being implemented at construction sites in other countries as well?
Oh yeah, I think this is a great opportunity to learn globally, right? This is one problem that we all share. So why not R&D, rip off and duplicate what's working in one country or province or jurisdiction, for sure. We're having really good success with not having outbreaks on construction sites, and our industry is still moving. And that's British Columbia, Canada. Ontario took a different approach, and they were shut down. I don't know all the politics behind that. They were shut down, but now they're starting to go again. So definitely, if there's been an industry where it's still going, we're still working, and we're not having clusters or outbreaks, then 100% rip off and duplicate model. That's what I said with the social distancing information that I handed out. Said, here you go, take this, copy and paste, modify this procedure. It's not copywritten if you have permission. Take it, modify it to suit your business or your construction site. Just keep everybody safe. Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Well, spoken like a true entrepreneur there. So how else has this pandemic affected your business? I think we talked about this new thing that you had to pivot quite quickly and adapt. But how else has it impacted or affected your business?
So adapting is the correct vocabulary. We haven't had to pivot at all. We're still doing first aid and safety staffing. What has changed, so my business name is Active Safety, because when we come on job sites, we pitch in with the crew. We don't just walk around and shake our finger at safety infractions. We'll help rectify it. If somebody's on a ladder that's too short and they're standing on the top step, we'll go and get them a taller ladder. It's not about keeping our hands clean. We love working with the guys and the girls on the job site and pitching in where it's needed. So when this all happened, I pulled back on that. We needed to protect our safety officers and our first aid attendants, like I said, not just from getting the disease, but the suspicion that they might have spoken to somebody who might have the disease. And the reason why I had to protect our attendants and safety officers from that is because you need to have them by our regulations in order to operate. So if all our first aid attendants went down, then there is no construction sites, right? We can't run without them. So we had to adapt with that. So I went from laboring with the crew to hiding out in the first aid room and trying not to talk to anybody and just keeping all that very, very socially distant, very 6 feet apart, and really limited interactions with the crew. And then as we learned more and we were given some guidelines by the government, we used our first aid attendants and safety officers to then go and point out and gently remind people when they're working too close together, to make sure that the sub-trades were sanitizing the common areas that they were using or their tools, just monitoring for that. Reminding, I saw a lot of guys on site wearing their work gloves, touching whatever they wanted to touch, which is great. We recommend removing your work gloves for lunch. But there was a bunch of guys smoking with their gloves on. So the little things that you don't think about is that's when you're going to run the risk of catching it.
I see.
So,
well,
right. We didn't have to pivot. We just had to adjust and modify.
Right, right. And I love the philosophy that you adopt there, where it's not telling people what you can and cannot do, you know, so not being a cop essentially, but rather actively finding solutions together with them, and offering alternatives, you know, shorter ladder, taller ladder, and so on and so forth. Okay.
So other than that, and it's been amazing. I mean, there was the 3 weeks of just constantly changing situations. Are we going to be allowed to continue working? And this is how we're going to do it, and easing the fears of all our staff and clients, etc. But otherwise, things have really settled down. And for us, aside from the changes we've made, it is business as usual. So with that, as an entrepreneur, I get excited when things aren't business as usual. I get excited when I can pitch in because things are in chaos or things are in like some extreme state of rapid growth and I need to think on my feet. So right now, business is as usual, and my biggest job is to not create chaos in my own company, to support my team who is plugging away and doing all the things that we've talked about. They're continuing to advertise, do sales, manage the company. We're regularly hiring. We've quickly adapted to Zoom interviews and onboarding sessions. So that's been very beneficial actually for going forward post-COVID, to have automated a lot more of our business processes. But otherwise, it's impacted our business positively in that sense, where we're getting more creative. I am refusing to let myself create more drama or projects for the team and just allowing them to work with what's on their plate right now. And as well, the government funding, government grants, the ones that make sense for us, that benefit us without taking advantage of other companies that actually need this funding right now, is what we're looking into.
All right. So Heather, is there anything that I haven't asked you that you'd like to share?
You did mention, so I really did want, you mentioned like what's the biggest decision I've made since the whole COVID. And like I already said, the biggest decision I've made was to not make any big decisions and to stay the course and not give into the FOMO fear. It's very interesting because I'm so dialed in with the entrepreneur community, not just in my region, but globally. And also my local group of female entrepreneurs, and then my local group of budding entrepreneurs that I do some mentorship with. And what I've been amazed at is seeing the progression of, you know, oh my gosh, I'm losing my business, and like the heartache and just the intense emotions that were in the first few weeks of this pandemic, and on the global scale as well, being on calls all over the world, watching my friends struggle and lose their businesses or lose like 75% of their revenue overnight. And then, that was a heavy, heavy couple of weeks, and it was emotionally, like, to have the whole world go through pain and heartache like that all at the same time and experience so much fear. I mean, you could just feel it. And what has amazed me is even the people that were at the lowest of the lows were saying, you know what, this has happened, but I'm already looking forward. I'm already planning. We've got another great idea. My team is doing such amazing work. People are rallying. So there's that scrappiness that is coming through. And now are we 6 weeks, 7 weeks later, 8 weeks? And things have really stabilized, in my opinion, what I've seen in the entrepreneurial world. A lot of business owners have accepted their current condition, the state of where things are at, and have already turned and, like you said, pivoted on a road to success and, to some level, contentment and acceptance of where people are at and where their business is at. And I just think it's amazing. I think it's amazing.
Right.
So,
well, I just wrote on my blog that a lot of us had to go through this 5 stages of grief very quickly. And the sooner we cycle through that, the faster we can just move on and hustle under this new normal.
You also asked me if I could speak to female entrepreneurs. So I engaged in some mindset coaching prior to, like, right before COVID, and I've committed and stayed the course every week, and I've been working on that. And me personally, and I'm sure a lot of women share as well, I drive myself, or I have driven myself, by guilt in the past. Like, I'm not working hard enough. I'm not doing enough. I should be this way, or I should be doing this, or comparing myself against other female entrepreneurs, like my business should make more money, or I should, put my hair down and straighten it for this interview, or whatever it is. Women especially put a lot of pressure on themselves. So one of the best things I've done during this whole time is given myself permission to not feel guilty. You and I spoke earlier this week. I've ditched the desire or the thought that I should have a morning routine. I've decided I'm not one of those entrepreneurs that get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and spend half an hour meditating, and then I journal, and then working out. And, I could spend the whole day doing a morning routine of all the things I think I should be doing in order to be a good person. So if I could say one thing, it would just be, recognize when you're guilting yourself into things and let it go. Because I tell you, for me, waking up sometime between 6 and 7 and then choosing my own adventure in the morning has set me up to feel way more positive, way more creative, way more productive, and just on a whole kinder to myself. I'm actually enjoying my days a lot more.
All right. Well, Heather, so again, thank you so much for your time and for your insights here. I think you really knocked it out of the park. Yeah.
Nice seeing you.
Good luck to you, and hopefully we get through this pandemic sooner rather than later. And
we will. We're so adaptable as human beings.
Right.
So we'll get through this, and then we'll all be giving each other big hugs.